The afternoon, my phone lit up with the message, "I'm quitting my job. You'll take care of us while I figure things out." I realized my family had finally said the quiet part out loud. My name is Madison Blake. I'm 29, and in my family, I'm the one who always has it together, which apparently means my bank account is everyone else's safety net. I stared at that text from my older brother, read it twice, and my fingers moved before my guilt could kick in. "That's not on me," I wrote back. 15 minutes later, my dad's message came in, all caps like he was shouting through the screen. "Sign the $180,000 loan for your brother or you're banned from this family." No, please. No question mark. Just an order and a threat. While their messages stacked up in our family group chat, I opened my laptop, not to look at any loan documents, but at an email I'd been sitting on for weeks. An offer for a job abroad that started Monday. Same salary on paper, different continent, different life. I scrolled down to the button I'd been too scared to touch, the one that said "Accept Offer." I didn't argue with anyone. I didn't call a family meeting. I just clicked. New job abroad. Starts Monday. That night, instead of co-signing a loan, I went through every bill with my name on it and started cutting them off one by one. Phone plan, gone. Extra insurance, gone. Automatic transfers to help out, gone. I froze my credit, muted the family chat, and set my phone face down on the counter while it buzzed itself into a small earthquake. By midnight, there were 56 missed calls and more messages than I could scroll through, all variations of, "How could you do this to us?" from people who never asked how it felt to be used. People love to say you never walk away from family, but nobody warns you what happens when your family treats you like a walking loan application with a pulse. If you've ever been the responsible one expected to save everyone else, stay with me until the end, because once you hear what they did before that text and what happened after I got on that plane, you can decide for yourself whether I was cruel for choosing a one-way ticket over a $180,000 promise. Looking back, that text from my brother wasn't some shocking twist. It was just the moment the pattern stopped pretending to be subtle. I grew up in a suburb outside Denver where my parents loved to say, "We're a team," but the roles on that team were assigned early. I was the kid who got straight A's and clocked in at a part-time job as soon as I turned 16, stocking shelves at a grocery store to save up for a used laptop. My older brother, Brandon, got a gaming PC because he needs it for his ideas. And when he crashed his first car, testing something, my parents called it a learning experience. When I went to college, I pieced together scholarships, campus jobs, and cheap textbooks from online marketplaces. Brandon bounced between majors and business concepts, and every time something went wrong, my parents quietly dipped into savings so he wouldn't fall behind. They were proud of me, sure, but the compliments always came with a twist. "Madison's fine. She's responsible," my dad would say, waving off any worry about me, while my mom sighed over Brandon's sensitive spirit and how he just needed a little more support to find his path. By the time we were both adults, that little more support had turned into a steady stream of my money flowing in his direction. It started with small things that were easy to shrug off. The first time I picked up a Sunday brunch bill, my dad slapped me on the shoulder and said, "Look at you, treating the family, big shot analyst." Brandon forgot his wallet, laughed it off, and my mom said, "You know your brother. He's bad with details." Like that was a quirky personality trait instead of a problem. Then my phone line quietly became a family plan, with Brandon added just for a month or two, until he figures out this freelance thing. Car insurance expanded because it's cheaper to bundle everyone together and you make the most money anyway. When Brandon lost yet another job and needed health insurance, my mom called me whispering like it was an emergency. He can't go without coverage, honey. Can you just put a marketplace plan in your name for him for a bit? It was always just for now, just until, just this one time. At first, I didn't question it. I was in my mid-20s with a stable job in data analysis, paying my own rent on time, watching my credit score climb, and thinking this is what adults do. They help family. But as the years went on, the help stopped feeling like kindness and started feeling like a subscription. Brandon's Venmo requests stopped being for gas money and turned into that software I need for a new project, a short-term loan for equipment, money for the security deposit on a nicer place because it's better for content. His girlfriend Kayla showed up in the group chat with links to lighting rigs and microphones, tagging me with, "This would be huge for the podcast, Maddie. We'll pay you back when we monetize." They said investment like it was a magic word that erased the risk from every swipe of my card. Thing is, I'm a data person. I live in spreadsheets. So somewhere between the third, "we'll pay you back when this takes off," and the fifth, "just spot us this month," I opened a private Google Sheet and started logging every dollar I sent out. Phone bill share, car insurance difference, health insurance premium, the time I covered an overdraft fee so Brandon's account wouldn't close, the $2,000 I wired when he insisted he just needed to clear a debt to reset, the $300 here, $750 there, the vet bill for their dog, the emergency dental appointment, the "we're short on rent because brand deals are delayed." On their own, none of those numbers looked insane. But in rows and columns, with dates and notes, they added up to something that made my stomach turn. Every time my parents said, "We all chip in, it balances out in the long run," the numbers told a different story. There was no balance. There was me, quietly covering gaps so Brandon could keep acting like consequences were optional. And every time I thought about pushing back, I heard my mom's voice in my head saying, "You know how your brother is. You're the only one we can count on." I didn't realize it yet, but that sentence was the real loan agreement they thought I'd signed. The email about Berlin landed in my inbox on a random Tuesday, sandwiched between a company newsletter and a coupon for takeout. Subject line: International Opportunity, Lead Data Analyst. I almost deleted it on reflex, assuming it was some generic internal spam, but my cursor froze when I saw my name. It was a formal offer from our European headquarters, based in Berlin, asking if I'd consider relocating for a promotion. Higher base salary, relocation package, housing assistance for the first year, a team to manage instead of just cleaning up other people's dashboards from my Denver apartment. It was the kind of thing I used to daydream about when I was still in college, before I understood how heavy the word responsible could get when your family weaponized it. I read the email 3 times, heart pounding, then did what I always did when something big touched my life. I called my mom. She answered already half distracted, the TV in the background, my dad yelling something about a game. I told her about Berlin, about the role, about how rare it was to be asked instead of having to claw my way into a promotion. For a second, she sounded genuinely happy. "Wow, baby, Berlin, that's huge," she said. Then there was a pause, and I heard the shift before she spoke again. "But with Brandon still figuring things out, is now really the time to move halfway across the world?" Just like that, the excitement drained out of my chest. I started explaining logistics, how I could send money from anywhere, how I'd be on a different time zone, but still reachable. She cut in, softer this time, using the voice she saved for guilt. "You know your brother's been fragile. He just needs a stable base while he gets this new project going. If you leave right when he's turning a corner, what does that say?" It's funny how quickly a dream can start to feel selfish if the right person frames it that way. Around the same time, Brandon and Kayla moved into a nicer apartment downtown for the brand. The place had exposed brick, big windows, perfect lighting for their video content. They hosted brainstorm sessions that looked a lot like parties, and every time the rent or utilities were a little too high, my phone would buzz. We're a tiny bit short, can you spot us? The content is really about to take off. They bought better mics, a new camera, a neon sign with Brandon's podcast name on it. Every purchase was sold as an investment. Every problem was something the future success would wipe clean. Meanwhile, I was the one tracking my PTO, so precisely I knew down to the hour how much time I could take if something went wrong back home. Every time the Berlin offer crossed my mind, my brain turned it into a math problem where the variables were never in my favor. If I left, who would keep the phone plan on? Who would float the health insurance payment? Who would cover the overdraft fee so the bank didn't freeze his account? My parents had turned my presence into a line item in their plan without ever saying it out loud. The guilt didn't hit all at once. It accumulated in layers. It showed up when my manager casually asked if I'd thought about the Berlin role, and I heard myself say, "It's not the right time." It showed up when I watched Brandon post videos about taking risks and burning the boats, while I quietly picked up his slack in the boring, grown-up ways he never taped. It showed up every time my mom ended a call with, "We don't know what we'd do without you, Maddie. You're our rock." Like my stability was a resource they owned. I told myself I was being a good daughter, a good sister, that it was temporary, that once Brandon's thing finally worked, I'd be free. I didn't realize that's not how it works. People who never face consequences don't suddenly decide to stop leaning on you. They just get more comfortable, and the longer I waited to say no, the more impossible the words started to feel. The night everything finally stopped being vague requests and turned into a full-blown pitch deck, my mom texted, "Family Zoom at 7, important." With 3 heart emojis like that made it less ominous. I logged on expecting another round of, "Brandon's so close, he just needs a little more time." But they'd actually prepared this time. My parents were already in the call when I joined, faces framed by the warm kitchen light I grew up under. A minute later, Brandon popped in from his downtown apartment, Kayla beside him, both of them looking like they were about to present to investors instead of their exhausted daughter. "Okay, everyone's here," my dad said, clearing his throat like a coach before a game. "Maddie, we want to talk about Brandon's big opportunity." My mom hit share screen, and a PDF slid into the center of my laptop. At the top, in bold letters, it said, "Studio Rebrand and Wellness Hub, Carter Family Plan." Slide after slide laid out their vision. A combined podcast studio, content space, and creative wellness center, with meditation rooms and branded merch. There were photos of empty lofts, mood boards, and then the part that made my stomach knot. A projected budget with a neat little box at the bottom labeled "Bank Loan, $180,000. Next to it, in a smaller font, "Cosigner, Madison Blake." "It's pretty great, right?" Brandon said, grinning. "We've run the numbers. The bank just needs someone with a strong credit profile to sign with me so it goes through. It's no big deal, just on paper." My mom jumped in before I could tell him exactly how big a deal that was. "Honey, your brother's been working so hard on this. The bank loves the plan. They just need a little reassurance. You have that incredible credit score, and you're so financially secure. We're not asking you for money, just your name." My dad nodded like he was offering me a compliment. "We'd do it ourselves, but we're older. We've got some dings. You're the future, kiddo. This is how families help each other build something." On the screen, under Assumptions, I saw phrases like rapid growth, projected sponsorships, low failure risk. It was like watching strangers use my life as collateral in a game of pretend. I took a breath. "No," I said. Just that at first. 3 letters that made the whole call go still. "Excuse me?" my dad said, like he'd misheard. I swallowed. "I'm not co-signing a $180,000 loan. Not for a studio, Not for anything. Brandon laughed like I was joking. Maddie, chill. It's not like you'll actually be paying it. It's just to get the approval. You trust me, right? I felt my jaw tighten. This isn't about trust. It's about risk. If this doesn't go the way your slides say, the bank comes for my credit, my future. I'm not doing that. My mom's face crumpled. Madison, after everything we've done for you, we're just asking for support. You of all people know Brandon needs a break. Kayla leaned toward the camera, perfectly made up, eyes big. This is really unfair, Maddie. You know how much pressure he's under. You sitting on your savings while he's drowning is honestly kind of cruel. The word cruel hit harder than I wanted it to. My dad's voice rose. We raised you better than this. Family steps up. We didn't raise a selfish brat who only cares about her own comfort. I let them talk. Let the guilt phrases roll over me. After all we've done, we're just asking for this. You know how your brother is. This is our dream as a family. Then I spoke as calmly as I could. I've already stepped up. For years, I've covered bills, insurance, debts. None of that was a loan agreement, and still, I paid. But this, $180,000 with my name on it? That is not happening. My mom started crying, actually sobbing into her hands. Brandon's expression hardened. Fine, he said. If you don't believe in me, just say that. Don't pretend you're doing this for your own good. You just like being in control. We ended the call with my dad accusing me of destroying Brandon's shot, and my mom whispering, "You'll regret this," like a curse. Afterward, sitting alone in my apartment with my laptop still open, something in me felt off. My parents had said the loan would only go through if I signed, but a voice in my head wouldn't shut up. I pulled up my credit report, more out of habit than suspicion, and started scrolling. Most of it was what I expected. My car, my credit cards, my apartment lease. Then I saw it. A personal loan for $5,000 from a year and a half ago, opened under my name for home improvement. My stomach dropped. I had never taken out a home improvement loan. Not for my place, not for anyone. I clicked into the details, saw my address listed as the mailing address but my parents' house as the property. I remembered the new flooring they'd put in, the way my dad had joked about getting approved was a pain but worth it. I'd assumed it was all under their names. It wasn't. It was under mine. My hands shook as I realized what that meant. Somewhere along the line, they'd used my social security number without asking, signed my name onto their mess and never told me. And now they wanted $180,000 more. The pitch on Zoom had been dressed up like love and opportunity, but my credit report showed the ugly version underneath. This wasn't a one-time ask. This was a pattern. They weren't just relying on me. They were betting my future like chips at a table I hadn't agreed to sit at. Looking at that screen, at my name attached to debt I hadn't chosen, I finally understood that if I didn't get out, the next loan wouldn't be $5,000. It would be the one we'd just argued about, and they would sleep just fine while I paid for it. After I saw that $5,000 loan sitting under my name, something inside me snapped, but not in the screaming, throwing things kind of way my family is used to. It was quieter than that, heavier. I closed the credit report, closed the Zoom window I still hadn't exited, and opened my old Google Sheet. Scrolling through the list of little favors and short-term spots I'd given Brandon over the years, the total at the bottom stared back at me like a joke. I didn't say anything to them that night. I didn't call to confront them about the loan. I just stopped believing the story that we were all on the same team. Over the next few weeks, the energy shifted. My mom sent me softer messages, lots of, "I know you didn't mean to upset your brother," and "We'll talk when you've calmed down," as if I'd been hysterical instead of the only adult on that call. Brandon went passive-aggressive on social media, posting vague quotes about family holding you back and the people closest to you fearing your success. My dad kept his distance, which in our house was code for, he's mad, but he'll weaponize it later. Through all of it, the Berlin offer sat in my inbox, a bright, clean possibility in between utility bills and automated reports. HR had emailed to follow up twice, then a third time with a polite, "We'd love to have you, but we do need a decision soon." I stared at those emails on nights when I couldn't sleep, imagining myself on a different continent where my name wasn't secretly attached to anyone else's bad decisions. Then came the text that started the avalanche. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was between meetings, microwaving leftovers, when my phone buzzed with Brandon's name. "I'm quitting my job today. You'll take care of us while I figure things out." No emoji, no question mark, just a statement like he was confirming the weather. I felt my jaw lock. For a second, the old script tried to load in my brain. Ask what happened, offer to help for one more month, tell myself he's under stress. But that spreadsheet, that $5,000 loan, the $180,000 PowerPoint, all of it sat just under my skin. Before I could talk myself out of it, I typed, "That's not on me," and hit send. My heart was pounding like I'd just done something reckless, even though all I'd really said was no. I didn't have long to sit with it. 15 minutes later, my dad's text came in, one long block of caps and anger. "Sign the $180,000 loan for your brother or you're banned from this family and all holidays." I read it 3 times, not because I didn't understand it, but because I wanted to be very sure there was no misunderstanding. There it was, laid out clear. My worth boiled down to a signature. Our relationship reduced to collateral. They hadn't even bothered to pretend it was about my well-being anymore. I didn't argue. For once, I didn't explain. Didn't send a long message trying to make them see my side. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Berlin email instead. The subject line hadn't changed, but how I saw it had. It was no longer just a promotion, it was a way out. Inside, the big blue button waited. Accept offer. I hovered over it, thought of all the times my mom had said, "We don't know what we'd do without you," and realized she didn't mean it as a compliment. She meant it as a plan. My fingers stopped shaking. I clicked. A confirmation page loaded, outlining my start date, the relocation process, the fact that my new life began Monday. While my phone vibrated again with what I knew would be another guilt-filled message, I opened my banking app instead. If they were willing to use my name without asking, I needed to make sure they couldn't anymore. I started with the obvious. I called my carrier and removed Brandon from my phone plan, letting the representative's scripted surprise wash over me. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Very," I said. I called the car insurance company next, unbundling policies so his driving record wasn't quietly dragging my rates up. I logged into the marketplace and canceled the health insurance I'd been paying under my name for him, just until he got back on his feet. I went through my automatic payments and stopped every transfer labeled Help, Spot, or anything with his name attached. Then I requested a credit freeze with all 3 bureaus, locking my file so no one could open anything new in my name without me knowing. While I did all of that, the group chat was exploding. My mom sent paragraphs about betrayal and how no one turns their back on blood. My dad sent short, sharp lines. Ungrateful. "You think your fancy job makes you better than us." Brandon chimed in with, "Guess I know who's really family now," and Kayla added, "It must be nice to hoard stability while other people struggle." At one point, my mom hit video call. I answered because I knew if I didn't, they'd just show up at my door. Their faces filled the screen, a wall of anger and hurt aimed in my direction. "How could you do this to your brother?" my mom demanded, already crying. "He just quit his job. He was counting on you. My dad leaned in. You need to call the bank and straighten this out. Tell them you'll co-sign. Stop this nonsense before it goes too far. I felt strangely calm. I'm not calling the bank, I said. I'm not signing anything. I've already done more than enough. Brandon scoffed loudly. Oh, here we go. Spreadsheet Maddie, you gonna pull up your little charts and act like that's the same as family? I actually did pull it up. I turned my laptop so they could see the rows and columns, the dates and notes. This is the last 10 years, I said. Phone, insurance, rent gaps, emergencies, investments. This is thousands of dollars I never called a loan, even though you promised to pay them back. I'm not doing it anymore. Not for $5, and definitely not for $180,000. My dad shook his head. We didn't raise you to nickel and dime your own brother. You raised me to fix everything, I said. To clean up, to pay up, to shut up. That's done. There was yelling after that. Accusations. My mom said I was choosing money over love. Brandon said I was jealous that he was living boldly while I was playing it safe. None of it landed the way it used to. I ended the call mid-rant, my thumb pressing the red button while my dad's voice was still echoing through the speaker. Then I did one more thing they never expected. I muted the group chat, turned my phone face down on the counter, and let it ring. By midnight, the screen showed 56 missed calls, dozens of texts I didn't open. Somewhere beneath the chaos, an email from HR confirmed my relocation details and flight options. They had given me a choice between staying chained to people who saw me as a walking credit score or taking a chance on a life where my yes and my no actually meant something. For the first time, I chose myself. By the time my plane touched down in Berlin, the panic on my phone had cooled from boiling to a low, constant simmer. There were a few more all-caps messages from my dad about final chances and, "Don't you dare do this." A string of guilt-soaked texts from my mom, and a couple of half-angry, half-pitiful, "I really hope you're happy" notes from Brandon. Then, for a while, there was nothing. I threw myself into my new life. Jet lag, a new office, new streets, a language I didn't speak yet. My first Monday abroad, while my team walked me through systems and introduced me to the best coffee machine on our floor, my old life was back in Denver, trying to function without the invisible scaffolding of my money holding it up. I didn't have to imagine the fallout. It trickled to me in pieces. A month in, my aunt from my dad's side sent me a Facebook message that started with, "I'm staying out of it, but," and then absolutely did not stay out of it. She mentioned that my parents had tried to get the $180,000 studio loan anyway and been turned down, that they were shocked the bank wouldn't approve Brandon on his own. "They really thought you'd cave," she wrote. "When you didn't, they figured the bank would see his potential or something. Turns out banks don't take vibes as collateral." A week after that, I checked my credit monitoring out of habit and saw a notification. Attempted inquiry, blocked due to freeze. No new loan, no new card, no new line of credit using my name had slipped through while I was sleeping 6 time zones away. It was the blandest little alert, but it felt like a tiny victory. Word made its way through the extended family as it always does. I wasn't there for the conversations, but from what leaked back to me, the narrative my parents tried to push, Madison abandoned her brother in his time of need, didn't land the way they expected. Once, my aunt and a couple cousins started asking out loud why a grown man in his 30s needed his sister to shoulder a 6-figure loan. The sympathy shifted. "We all helped our kids," one relative apparently told my mom. "But using her social without asking? That's not helping Pat. That's crossing a line." Without my monthly emergencies, Brandon couldn't keep up the downtown lifestyle. The loft with the perfect lighting went first. The landlord doesn't accept inspirational quotes as payment. Kayla hung on for a few bleak weeks of takeout ramen and overdue notices before she tapped out. I saw the breakup indirectly when Brandon posted a late-night story about people only riding with you when the car's new, followed by a blurry shot of his stuff piled in the back of a rideshare. The next time my aunt mentioned him, she said he was doing delivery gigs and complaining about wasting his talent on app work. My parents had to adjust too. No more quiet auto drafts from me to cover utilities when things are tight. No more health insurance premiums showing up magically paid on the first. They sold their house and moved somewhere smaller, something my mom described in a mass email as simplifying. But my aunt called, "What happens when you treat one kid's paycheck like an endless ATM?" They still floated a few vague apology posts on Facebook. Sometimes we hurt those we love and can only pray they forgive us. But even those ended with lines about helping Brandon rebuild, like the whole universe was a GoFundMe for his choices. From across the ocean, I watched them finally meet consequences they'd been dodging for years, and for once, I wasn't the one cushioning the fall. It wasn't dramatic. No explosions or public reckonings, just a slow unraveling of a system that only worked as long as I kept feeding it. And in that slow collapse, there was a kind of justice I hadn't believed I'd ever get. New Year's Eve in Berlin didn't feel like any New Year I'd ever had before. Back home, it used to mean my mom yelling at everyone to be there by 7, my dad pretending not to care about the countdown while secretly timing the game so it didn't overlap, Brandon showing up late with some new big plan to announce over dessert. This year, it was me and a couple of co-workers on a balcony overlooking a street I'd only learned the name of a few months ago, sharing cheap champagne and laughing about resolutions in 3 different accents. When I went back to my apartment after midnight, cheeks cold from the air and still buzzing from the fireworks, my phone was waiting, like it always is. There was a mass family text of grainy selfies from whatever small house my parents live in now. My mom's caption talking about missing those who aren't with us this year. There was also a separate message from her that said, "We hope you'll come home next Christmas. Your brother is trying, you know. We're all hurting." A year ago, that would have sent me into a spiral of what-ifs and maybes. This time, I read it sitting at my little kitchen table, surrounded by plants I'd bought myself and bills that all had my name on them and no one else's. And I didn't feel guilt. I felt distance. Not the cold kind, just the kind that lets you see things clearly instead of through other people's needs. I did call eventually, not that night, but a few days later. The conversation was awkward and careful. My parents didn't scream. They didn't apologize fully either. It was a lot of, "We're sorry if you felt," and "We all made mistakes." But somewhere in there, my dad admitted using my social was crossing a line, and my mom said she understood why I froze my credit. Brandon got on for a minute, mumbled something about working now and figuring stuff out, then handed the phone back. It wasn't a movie moment. No violins, no group hug. Just real people, still a little defensive, starting to realize I'm not coming back to the old script. The real change didn't happen in that call anyway. It happened in the quiet routines I built without them. Weekly therapy where I finally said the phrase financial abuse out loud and didn't immediately take it back. Automating transfers into my own savings instead of someone else's emergency. Learning that I liked certain cheap noodles and hated others. That I enjoyed walking alone with a podcast more than I enjoyed sitting at a table pretending not to notice who forgot their wallet. I still have a spreadsheet, but now it tracks my goals, trips I want to take, classes I might sign up for, savings milestones that belong only to me. No line item labeled family bailout. Here's what I've learned, the part I wish someone had told me at 20 instead of 29. Being the responsible one doesn't mean being the sacrificial one. Being good with money doesn't obligate you to light your future on fire so someone else never has to feel heat. Love and loyalty don't require you to co-sign away your peace, your credit, your sanity. You are allowed to say no even when people cry, even when they call you selfish, even when they tell the whole world you're the villain. You are allowed to leave, not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally started loving yourself enough to stop being their safety net. If any of this sounds uncomfortably familiar, if you're the one they always know will understand, I'm not going to tell you it's easy to walk away. It isn't. It's messy and scary, and your phone will fill up with messages that make you question everything. But I can tell you this. On the other side of that first no, there's a version of your life where your worth isn't measured in how much you can bail everyone else out. And you deserve to at least find out what that life looks like.